said, I was listening to you carefully, that after finishing your degree, you were taken to Nipa to learn.
Yes.
One day I was playing golf with the late Bruce Munyama.
Okay, yeah, the lawyer.
May so rest in peace. He was Foreign Affairs Permanent Secretary in
At
the
Independence,
60s,
yeah.
at Independence. He said to me, Pastor Chiluba, in those days, you would not write a letter as a civil servant without concluding by saying, most obliged.
Exactly.
And every letter had a standard, how to write it.
Exactly.
But now, most of the civil servants are cadres. I have never been a civil servant, but most of the service, maybe most is a bad word, some of the civil servants are cadres who cannot even write a professional letter. And I've got problems with that. How do you address such things?
Now, what happened as we were going along, President Kaunda and his colleagues realized that we were going a different direction. President Kaunda started writing. He wrote Humanism Part 1, Humanism Part 2. All that he was trying to say is, I want you people who claim now to be educated, who can read, to read how you are around in a community, who you are. You are only in that community and recognized by the people who are around you. If you are alone, who will recognize you? And that is what now he started talking about humanism. So later on, then he said, no, these young people get astray. So we had some studies in Caribbeans of their national service. So President Kaunda introduced the national service. The idea was, let these people, young people, go to a place where they will be taught what it means to be a Zambian. And that is how national service was brought. But instead of just learning about the theories and the theology and so on of Ubuntu and so on, he said, I want them to start producing. Now, they started producing, but again, some of them who didn't go through that system, they didn't know how really and what that system was meant to be. If you go around now, Pastor Jerube, and you find a civil servant, perhaps, let's say, 10 years younger than me, 5 years, their behavior is different from the young people now. The national service was to inculcate this idea of patriotism, nationalism, that you are a Zambian, and this Zambia has geographical boundaries, and it's your responsibility to after this Zambia and anybody in this country called Zambia. Now, what became a problem, I think we had 1 year when I think cholera broke in some of the camps. So people recommended closing the national service. And really, one would say, by the time late Mwanawasa was thinking of having cleared the balance sheet of Zambia now with no debt, what are we going to do with the people now? And I and a few of us said, we have to go back to national service. In fact, we had already planned that come 2010, we would reintroduce national service. The idea was that we introduce a service that anybody who gets accepted to go to a college after Form 5 or grade 12 must go to national service. Whether they have been accepted by a private university or a private firm, before they go to work, before they go for further training, they should go to national service. The idea was that perhaps in another 5-10 years, we would have produced a Zambian who is patriotic and nationalistic. Then together with that, we said, what about the young people? They can't go to national service. So we're in the process of readjusting the syllabus for primary school. And we had planned that part of the money which was now being saved from HIPIC would go into support of nurseries, nursery schools, the whole country. They would be owned by private people. They would together own those schools in conjunction with the government. And the government would introduce a syllabus for those nursery schools. And then we said, but then these chaps will come out, very bright young people, others drop out. So we said, those who drop out, then we introduce an entrepreneurship program. As they drop out, then they'll go to learn skills and they become useful citizens. Those who continue, we think that in 20 years' time, they will finish their primary, secondary school, university, and that will be about 20, 25 years. Then these are the people we said, you are going to produce the Zambia of 2030. Now, that is where Vision 2030 came from. We wanted to trace a chap who started nursery school in 2010. After 20 years, they finish university. There must be an engineer who understands what Zambia is.
So, is that program being implemented? Because when you are leaving office, Honorable, you people who work in secular offices, or you've worked there, there is a program called handing over.
That's right.
Did you hand over to the Minister of Finance who took over? Did you hand over that vision or document, Vision 2030? Because the way you have explained it to me, that's when it has made sense. I just knew Vision 2030. I didn't know where it was coming from.
Now, to start with the skills development, we already had a lot of skills training institutes around. So what we did was, the first people to benefit out of the HIPIC savings were going to be people coming out of these trades institutes. So in 2007, 2006, it was decided that these people, as they come out of their colleges, on the left side, which is weaker, they will hold a certificate, a piece of paper. On the right side, they will hold a sewing machine because they went and finished the sewing course at the Kabwe Trades. Those who went to finish bricklaying, they would have a box of trowels. Those who finished mechanical engineering, they will be having a spanner box. And in 2007, Pastor Chiruba, you won't believe it, we managed to equip 3,000 graduates of trades institutes with the equipment and the tools of their trade. And President Mwanawasa had a ceremony at Lusaka Trades here where he handed over this equipment. And we said, this is the beginning. From now, anybody who finishes a course at a trades institute, whether that trades institute belongs to the Catholic bishop, or it belongs to some other institution, or to some clever guy who has started it, as long as it was registered by government, we are going to equip the graduates with the tools of their trade. Now, the idea was this. If you have so many of these young people, and they are from all over, 5 of them find themselves in Mongu, and they did carpentry. Those guys, with the tools that they were given wherever they graduated, they would go to Mongu Trades Institute, report themselves there, and then the institute would help them to register a public company. The 10 of them would register a public company. And then from there, all works which is required on government assets, these are the chaps whom we would say, go and repair the secondary school at whatever it is at Sananga. There would be already people with the knowledge. They have now tools and they have a job to do. So that after so many years, these guys would become now very big companies. They could take on any job. In fact, in that year, we had three guys who finished in mechanics. And they said, look, mechanics is very wide. We said, what do you want? They said, we want equipment which we can use to service vehicles. And we bought 3 machines. One guy was from Jipata, the other one from Mongo, the other one from Kabwe. The idea was that once he goes there and he reports at Kabwe Trades Institute, they would help him with that equipment to settle. The young people then who go to Kabwe Trades School, they would go to that company for their practicals. Because that guy already has got equipment. Next door, there will be a company of builders, bricklayers. And the people that were doing bricklaying at Kabwe Trades would go to that company for their practicals. Then it meant that we would not have young people coming out of Kasama Trades Institute and saying, I have no tools. The tools are elementary. And we said to ourselves, Pastor Chiluba, you can imagine a young girl coming out of Kanyama, going to Kabwe Trades Institute. As she finishes there, she has got a certificate and a sewing machine. Arrives home where there's a grandmother who has been saying, what are you doing? She says, here is my certificate. I know you can't read, but here is a sewing machine. I want all your old torn clothes. You bring them here. I want to show you what I learned. I mean, how much personality would you build out of somebody like that? And that is now what you are asking me. Did you hand over? We didn't hand over notes. We practically did this in 2007. And the money was there, which was no more going to the World Bank, no more going to Japan to pay the loans. It was there. And we had said, all these projects then will make sure that somebody who is able to start making plates, they will start making plates, HIPIC project. HIPIC project. After 10 years, 20 years like now, you would be able to go to a secondary school or to a hospital and find done by HIPIC project number so and so and so. Right now, Zambians don't know that where we are now, we were there before. But there were people who managed to come out of this. And that was basically...
I want you to repeat what you have said,
Yes,
Honorable.
Pastor.
It gives a lot of hope to me. You know, you are saying where we are now.
Yeah.
We were there before.
We were. Yes, we were.
And you were in the mix of it.
Exactly.
So, do you see us coming out of this situation?
If I can give a condition, if you are able to get to some civil servants, even 10 of them, select them, go to somebody responsible for them, and say, for the next 9 months, we are going to control your interest, your travel, just your travel. These civil servants can be in any field. And you tell them, we want to control your interest for the next 9 months. If in 9 months they finish their tours and they've been writing reports, and none of them has stolen 1 kwacha, then you come to me and I'll say, now we are going in the right direction. It's not an easy thing, Pastor Chiluba. Integrity is very, very difficult. Just to be able to do the right thing without anybody looking at you.
Like you said, writing a report on a pen
Yes.
and a notebook.
Yes. Which you have to surrender to show where it went. This time, I'm sure if we were even just to say, here are pens here, there's a conference here. At the end of the conference, some people will have 10 pens. And that is they only have 1 hand to write with. It's incredible. There has come this culture of just greediness. We did a lot of work on agriculture, and I worked with the FAO, with the World Bank, with the ADB, with the European Union, the Japanese rice projects, and so on. And a long time ago, somebody wrote, it is not lack of food that people are hungry. It's just that greed has taken over. There are people who want like to keep food as if they have 4 tummies. They don't want to share. Even now, as I'm saying, I'm sure a lot of people don't realize that as a public servant, you don't want anything in that public office. You don't. The only thing you own are the clothes and the shoes that you go with in the office and your brains. When you leave that office, everything remains in that office. What happened, unfortunately, in 1991, your namesake came in. And a lot of educated young people joined the government at very high levels as ministers. We had a 23-member cabinet. Out of those, 14 had PhDs, Doctor of Philosophy. And a lot of people said, everything is going to be all right. And I was one of those dancing, and I said, how do these educated people fail? Out of 23, 14 were PhDs. The rest had masters, 10 masters, whatever it is. But then what happened, unfortunately, the Zambian administrative system broke down. The first day, I think we had the elections somewhere in December or somewhere there, 1991.
91, yeah.
Yeah, in 1992, after the rains like now, the first time I saw a convoy of GXs with flowers, wedding flowers, garlands of flowers, 4 of them, around the post office bridge. I was with my children. I told them, they said, what is this, Daddy? What is this? I said, these are government vehicles. He said, but they have flowers. I said, yes, it's a wedding ceremony. One of my young boys, a very clever boy, he said, but where is your car? And at that time, I was already somebody somewhere. And I said, I don't have a car because I didn't want to give you the impression that these things belong to us. This convoy went into Cairo Road hooting a wedding ceremony. And immediately I got home, I told my wife, I said, the country has gone. This time, I don't know how many of those weddings are held with the GRZ. People have no qualms about that. Government of the Republic of Zambia, and you go to a wedding. It's a wedding of your nephew or your niece. The other people who own that vehicle you are driving, they are in Jinsali, they are in Sinazongwe, and you are misusing their property, and they have nowhere to go. That is our problem.
So you are saying that if we are to get back on track, we must control the controlling officers, the impress they use. When you allocated the money, you should be able to surrender it and be able to account for how you used it.
And that is what basically you are saying, you must control. But you also said, did you hand over? The time that I was leaving the ministry, government ministry, it was 5.5 years in the ministry responsible for money. And I used to make sometimes tours for 1-2 weeks. I'm negotiating in Moscow, then I take a trip down all the way to World Bank, then from there up I'm in the Netherlands. After 5.5 years, I didn't leave 1 kwacha of impress unaccounted for.
Really?
No. If you go now, you ask my officers, whom we traveled with that time, perhaps out of the whole lot, you'll find 90% followed what I was doing. Because before they got to settle down in the ministry from a tour with me, they would be asked, but you have delayed. The minister retired his impressed 2 days ago. Where have you been? No, sir, because I was given another job. Next time, we are going to deduct your money. And they were doing that. This time, Pastor Juluva, I wonder who is doing that. Most likely, even my officers, they discovered that not retiring an impress is the norm. And they just say, who report to parliamentary? I never went to parliament, even for my ministry, to report an retired impress. No. It isn't my money. The money is that, here is the money. You go to World Bank, like now it's spring meetings. You go to World Bank, this is all you can spend. When I come, I say, here are the receipts. I was in this hotel. What amazed me, Pastor Juluba, is that as I was going into the office, the first trip I made, my officers were saying, which hotel do you want to live in London? I said, me, I have never lived in London for more than 1 day, so put me in any hotel. And then they brought names of the hotels. I decided I'm going to check with the High Commissioner there. This hotel, where is it? They tell me, it's about 5 kilometers from the town. How much is it? Oh, 1,000 pounds. I said, not this one. By the time I called my officers, I said, how do I go to London on government business, go in a hotel 5 kilometers out of 5 kilometers away from the High Commission, and I'm paying 1,000 pounds per day? What job are you sending me for? I will be spending most of the time talking to the people, not in the hotel. This 1,000 pounds, the bed is there, is as good as mine here. Why should I take this money? And one of the officers just said, oh, Minister, I said, I'm sorry. I used to live in a hotel across the High Commissioner. Across the High Commissioner. That's where I used to live. And that meant when I was at the hotel, I could easily walk across and go and have a chat with the High Commissioner on what I have done. Like I say, and like you said, were there handover notes? There were not only handover notes, there were demonstrations. If you go and ask the old man, KK, what his habits were when he was in government, there are habits which a lot of people saw. But then they decide, I want to live differently. I will ignore these rules, the general orders. I will ignore them. And that is how, here is old KK, he retires 27 years. Right now, my age mate, Keno Kaunda, he has to struggle to produce food to sell or tobacco to sell to feed his grandchildren.
The son of a former president.
The son of a former president for 27 years, not for 2 years. And there is Dr. Kaunda. I haven't heard anybody saying, I found Dr. Kaunda in a hotel in Cape Town, and they were telling me, this is his hotel. No. So the public service broke down, may his soul rest in peace, when FTJ came in power. The young people just went and they said, we have no more whites to chase us. We have no more freedom fighting to do. We are going to enjoy ourselves.